There's a range of work within CSD that's focused on both gender equality and elimination of violence against women and children, particularly domestic and family violence. I think some really important work is work to support the community to respond to the recommendations from the We Don't Shoot Our Wounded report from 2009. So there's a whole range of recommendations there about a really different response to family violence for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community. So our role is to support a community-led process where community will set priorities for areas of future effort and areas of future investment for the government. One of the most young people told us many things about the impacts of violence in their families. They really wanted to have the conversation, but they had a really high expectation that if they participated in this research, that it would lead to real change. So they set the challenge for us to make sure what they told us leads to real change. And I think the thing that really stands out in what young people told us is when they're looking for help, what they're looking for is the one warm heart. They're looking for someone who really gets it and someone they can trust to actually share what's happening. They want to they want to be able to talk to someone but not lose control of what happens next. So I think it's really important to remember we need to give young people the opportunity to shape what the responses are and make sure we're always considering what they're telling us they need. I think in the ACT, one of the things it's been a really good change is I think we're starting to have a different conversation about people who use violence and understanding the complexities of the use of violence. So last year we had a perpetrator intervention forum in the ACT, and we had people come from across Australia who had a range of expertise to talk about the different approaches to people who use violence. And so I think that's giving us an opportunity to see really clearly that the responsibility for the use of violence is with the person who uses it, but there's a collective responsibility across a range of government and non-government providers and systems to hold those people accountable. So I think that's really important. I think the other thing where the ACT is leading, and it was prompted by the work of the Domestic Violence Prevention Council looking at the impacts of domestic and family violence on children and young people, is really important work that's been jointly led by the Family Safety Hub and the Children and Young People Commissioner to talk to young people directly about their experience of domestic and family violence in their families and start to give young people a real voice in how we design responses for them. I think the really important message for children and young people, and in fact it's the message that's come from them to us, is that they want to talk to a trusted person about what's happening to them, and that they're really careful about who they trust. So I would encourage young people to talk to someone you trust, someone, particularly a trusted adult who may not be directly in your family. And I know that that can be really hard, but letting someone know what's happening, but also letting them know what you're worried about, and having that conversation in a way where they will respect your confidentiality if that's what you want. I think that's really important. So talking to someone and talking to someone that you really trust. Since I came into doing this work in the ACT, I have learnt so much from women across the domestic violence and women's sector, people who've shared their expertise and their experience with me. One of my I think almost my first meeting with anyone was with Beara Women's Refuge, and they've always been incredibly generous with their time and sharing with us where they see the problems and what more needs to be done. So I have huge respect for all the women that have done this work for decades and continue to do it. I also, we've seen some really important change in the ACT driven by the Domestic Violence Prevention Council, chaired by Marcia Williams. So she's been a real champion for change, and in fact, in particular, has driven the focus on the experiences of children. So that's been incredibly important work. And nationally, I've been really pleased to see the impact of Jess Hill's work and her book last year, which really brought a complex conversation about violence to a national audience, and a really evidence-based conversation that really tried to bust some of the myths. So all of that I think is having an impact, and it's important that we're having this conversation at all levels, from local to national to global.